Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, which is brought to you by Wellness Forum Health, the Wellness Forum Institute, and Make Americans Free Again. First thing I want to do is show you our new book. It is out. I have them in the office now. Um, Conversations with Pam, The Power of Informed Healthcare. So you can buy them, of course, from Amazon and any place online and bookstores, but you can also call and order them from us and get some fruit nut crunch bars and smoothie ingredients and all the other stuff that you will order from Wellness Forum. But super happy to have this project finished and out and waiting for your feedback. So please read it and let us know what you think and tell others as well. I'm hoping that this book is the start of building our movement toward a more informed, medically informed society. That's my goal. But I need you to help me do it because there are just so many people I can talk to in a given day or a given year, even. And so we rely on you to spread the good word about what we're doing and about this book and about everything else that's going on. So, anyway, super happy about that. And I told somebody the other day, I think the best thing about writing a book is when you're not writing it anymore and you can just enjoy the fruits of your labors. So, I think we're both there at this point. The second thing to mention is the 6-week boot camp started last week. We're in the week 2 now, and you can still join. All of these are being recorded, and we're getting such good feedback on that. People really like the accountability of a daily class. They're making themselves work out again, like they do the workout on Tuesday, and then they do it a second time during the week. And so some good habits are being formed. And that was one of the reasons I made this a 6-week program is I thought by the end of 6 weeks, people will be in the habit of doing this stuff. And that's what you really want. So you can still do that. We'll make the videos available to you. And if you're a member, we're going to stick that in your documents tab so you can use these workouts and yoga classes and cooking classes, for the whole time you're a member. So that's really amazing. And then I'm starting the next Winners Circle group October 7th. And this is the personal development, habit change, change your mind, change your life program that I've offered now. I think this will be the 4th or 5th group. And there's still time to enroll if you'd like to join us for that. You can send me an email at pampopper@wellnessforum.com if you have questions about any of this stuff. So there's lots of news to report this week. I'm going to cover a couple things real briefly, and then I want to talk about the issue that seems to be generating the most attention, and that's this issue of Tylenol and vaccines and that kind of thing. So the first thing, Google was put in the hot seat by the House Judiciary Committee, followed up the testimony with a letter to Congress. And the bottom line is the Biden administration pressured Google to censor Americans and remove content that wasn't in violation of any YouTube policy. They admitted it. The Biden administration's censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities. The company will never again use third-party fact checkers. And they're very concerned about Europe's censorship program, which will eventually probably affect American companies. So I was a person who was censored, disciplined, forced to stop posting certain types of information on platforms like YouTube and Facebook. And the Biden administration definitely had targeted me in a number of different ways. So I'm happy to see this. The First Amendment is back in the United States. So I think that's a win for our side. And now the key is keeping it that way. And that's up to us to be diligent about it. Apparently, I spoke a little bit too soon when I said last week that the bird flu was not something to be concerned about because I didn't think this administration would go there. I was incorrect about that. 419,650 turkeys have been slaughtered very recently in South Dakota, of all places, due to detection of bird flu. The USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service detected the flu in 8 commercial flocks and 1 backyard flock just during the last 30 days. And according to a South Dakota veterinarian, the blue-winged teal duck is responsible. And she says that detection of bird flu this early in the fall is unusual. It usually happens later in the fall and then through spring. The bird flu depopulation process, by the way, is federally mandated. It involves killing all birds at all sites to prevent spread. There's a great deal of controversy about this. It's not effective, for one thing. And the way they do it is pretty inhumane. They put the animals in a barn and they foam spray them until they suffocate, and they kill them that way. And then the farmers are compensated by the federal government for their loss. So you and I, get to pay for it. And so apparently this administration isn't divorced from some of the nonsense. Not censorship is gone, and free speech is back in, but crazy public health is still a factor. And that kind of brings me to the most important news of the week, which is President Trump's assertion about Tylenol. He stated that it might be contributing to our problem with autism that we continue to see in American kids. But he also made some statements about vaccines. And this is a complicated topic, and it goes beyond what the president said during the press conference. So I'll give you my take on it based on what I know right now. I think it's an evolving story. My initial reaction when I heard about it, this is before I watched the actual talk and looked into it, is I thought, oh my gosh, they're just going to use Tylenol as a distraction instead of addressing the big issue, which is vaccines and autism. And we were promised that that would be dealt with in this administration. And other people shared my view about that. I exchanged some private emails with people, and I try not to speak out until I know what I'm talking about when I'm going to say something publicly. So anyway, I listened to the actual talk and then I did some research on my own. So, first, the President of the United States is talking about autism, recognizing that something is horribly wrong with our kids and emphasizing that we need to get to the bottom of it. He supports RFK and the Department of Health and Human Services in efforts to figure out what's going on. Believe it or not, any official, federal official, let alone the president, acknowledging that we have to figure this out is a new thing. Federal officials in general have spent decades dismissing anyone who questions vaccines and autism and covering it up and making silly claims about. One of my favorite is we're just better at diagnosing autism now, as if hand flapping and putting helmets on kids to keep them from harming themselves when they bang their head on the wall, that we didn't recognize before that this was such a problem, but now that we have great diagnosticians, we know something terrible is going on. I mean, give me a break. So, discussion about this issue by anyone in a position of power and influence is a step in the right direction. All right, whether it's vaccines or anything going on with our kids right now, this is a step in the right direction. So, I'll unpack the claims that were made one at a time. So, I'll start by saying the president stated that pregnant women should not take medication for pain and specifically mentioned risks associated with acetaminophen. This was followed by people screaming and hollering, claiming that pregnant women have enough to deal with without having to endure pain with no relief. And of course, I'm not for suffering, but we used to tell women not to take anything during pregnancy unless it was literally a three-alarm fire type emergency. During our almost 30 years in business, many pregnant members have told us that they've toughed out discomfort, reserving medical intervention only in emergency situations. And so, the first thing is that this whole business that medicating pregnant women has just become a standard part of it is ludicrous. By the way, one of the acknowledged side effects of vaccines is fever, which we're told is a sign that the vaccines are working, and Tylenol is recommended for fever reduction. Now, I've written about and spoken about the inadvisability of lowering fevers with drugs, but I'll let you read about those in the article, in the library of articles that members have access to. But the point that I wanted to make about this is that pregnant women receive at least 3 or 4 vaccines during their pregnancy, which would have been unheard of, again, because the rule was don't do anything that you don't absolutely have to do when you're pregnant. So that in itself is a bit bizarre and would not have been recommended at all many years ago. And one of the reasons pregnant women may be taking some Tylenol is to quell the fever, because having a fever when you're pregnant is also not such a good idea. So anyway, I then decided, well, aside from all that, is there any legitimacy to the claim that Tylenol could be related to children's health issues? And I did find some things between showing the relationship between Tylenol and autism spectrum disorders. An article titled "Evaluation of the Evidence on Acetaminophen Use and Neurodevelopmental Disorders Using the Navigation Guide Methodology" included the dean of Harvard School of Public Health. Her name is Andrea Baccarelli, as one of the authors. It was published in August of this year. And I'll just read the last paragraph to you. It says, our analyses using the navigation guide thus support evidence consistent with an association between acetaminophen exposure during pregnancy and increased incidence of neurodevelopmental disorders. Appropriate and immediate steps should be taken to advise pregnant women to limit acetaminophen consumption to protect their offspring's neurodevelopment. Another article concerning this issue was titled "The Dangers of Acetaminophen for Neurodevelopment Outweigh Scant Evidence for Long-Term Benefits," and it includes these statements and a table of studies to support these statements. Quote, despite over a decade of accumulating evidence that acetaminophen is harmful for neurodevelopment, numerous studies demonstrate that acetaminophen is frequently administered to children in excess of currently approved amounts and under conditions in which it provides no benefit. Further, studies have failed to demonstrate long-term benefits of acetaminophen for the pediatric population, leaving no valid rationale for continued use of the drug in that population, given its risks to neurodevelopment. JAMA Psychiatry published a study titled "Association of Cord Plasma Biomarkers of In Utero Acetaminophen Exposure with Risk of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder and Autism Spectrum Disorder in Childhood." That's a long title, isn't it? The conclusion was, quote, cord biomarkers of fetal exposure to acetaminophen were associated with significantly increased risk of childhood ADHD and autism spectrum disorder in a dose-response fashion. Our findings support previous studies regarding the association between prenatal and perinatal acetaminophen exposure and childhood neurodevelopmental risk and warrant additional investigations, end of quote. I think you get the idea. Trump's statements about acetaminophen were not without foundation. And by the way, why are the kids taking so much Tylenol these days, in addition to being exposed in utero? They're taking it because they're unhealthy. And then in some cases, they develop fevers in response to vaccines. And everybody's been trained that you always lower the fever. Trump also stated that children should not be given combinations of vaccines at the same time at a young age. He said that there are risks with all vaccines and that some are more concerning than others, and there's a concerning compounding effect with medicines in general. He's opened the door for discussion about this, and whether you like him or not, he's the most powerful person in the world right now, and this does help. Just as telling, at least to me, were the sources of the most vociferous opposition. In addition to the people on our side of the issue who don't read and just scream, we had the usual Paul Offit, for example, who was removed from the ACIP committee, most likely due to the fact that his conflicts are enormous. I mean, his job's paid for, I think, by Merck or drug company. And then he owned and sold a patent on a vaccine for tens of millions of dollars while on that committee and voting on approval for vaccines. Of course, the mainstream media chimed in to lambast Trump, which means nothing. They don't like anything he does. But also consider that none of these media outlets could stay in business, at least at this time, without the billions of dollars that are spent on advertising by drug and vaccine makers, which almost everybody knows is not to attract consumers, but to purchase positive reporting about their products. I mean, you watch those ads, I don't think anybody's picking up the phone saying, I want the stuff that causes people to drop dead and develop more autoimmune diseases, right? So here's the bottom line, at least according to me. Let's be grateful we have a president who's willing to go out on a limb and talk about this issue instead of repeating the safe and effective mantra that his predecessors repeated ad nauseum. Open discussion is the first step in helping to solve these problems, and there's been very little of this. It's great that it's happening at the same time that Google's admitting that censorship issue was an issue, or censorship was an issue, and then they're promising never to do it again. I'm posting this on YouTube as well as other channels, and I'm not worried about it being taken down anymore. I mean, I reached a point where I didn't care about it. I felt that I had things to say and I was going to say them anyway, even if I had to use an alternative means of distribution. But the point is, the word about all kinds of things is spreading much more freely than it was just 4 years ago. Second, concerns about Tylenol are real and they're justified, and they're not new. The Tylenol issue is closely tied to the vaccine issue, and the door has been open to look into both of them now. And that was not true just a few months ago. So before passing judgment, let's see how this plays out. The decades-long campaign to silence people who ask questions and allow conflicted and bought and paid for members of Congress to ignore the epidemic of kids with health issues is coming to an end, thankfully, right? The people who've profited from this will not go quietly into the night and lick their wounds. They're going to lose hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue over all of this. So, of course, they're going to scream and point the finger and holler and call people names and try to hang on to the gravy train of cash. So let's just give this some time. I think that what all of us would like after what we've been through is to wake up one day and see a press conference where they say, well, we've gotten to the bottom of it. No more vaccines and no mandates, and we're repealing the 1986 immunity deal. And I wish that things happened that way because, frankly, if they did, I'd have a whole lot less work to do and we'd all sleep better at night. But that's not the way that things happen. They happen gradually and incrementally, and usually with a lot of support from us, right? We have to do our part too. So I'm going to reserve judgment on all of this. I don't think that this was a distraction from the primary issue. I think it brought focus to the primary issue. And I think that there is some movement to do something about this. I'll also say before I sign off today, I am much more impressed with the administration and where they're going on issues like vaccines and vaccine approvals and that sort of thing. I wish they'd move more slowly, but I think the risk, or more quickly rather, because they're moving so slowly. But I think the risk of moving more quickly is to alarm people into taking action that would halt all of it, and I can understand that. But I am pleased that at least there is attention being paid to the matter and that it is no longer a forbidden topic when it comes to anything ranging from social media to physicians and other health professionals speaking out about it. So let's just see what happens. Let's get the pants on fire thing calm down a little bit. Let's see what happens. And we can change our minds about all of it in a couple of weeks, or we might just find that being calm and just waiting to see what comes next is the best approach. All right, so my usual every week ask for money. We are still litigating in court. We're still taking on new cases all the time. I know everybody wants to forget about all this stuff, but we can't because it's not over yet. It's not over until we finish it, and to finish it, we need money. So please keep those donations coming. And once again, the $5 and $10 donations that are coming in are helpful. People who can make that a monthly donation, that adds up so much. It helps us so much. It lets the lawyers sleep well at night, knowing that the only thing they have to worry about is being great litigators. They don't have to worry about money. I know you're not probably very concerned about how well I sleep, but I sleep better at night when I know we don't have to worry about money too. We could just worry about being great at what we do. All right. Once again, don't forget to read this book, buy it. Let me know what you think of it. Tell your friends and pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it. And I'll be back to you next week with more news. Thank you so much for watching and being with me today.